Hey guys, today we're taking a look at everything you need to know about setting up your bindings for your snowboard and every single aspect of stance, width, boots. We're going to take a deep dive. I'm Chris O'Shea. I've been snowboarding for over 2 decades and here we go, let's get stuck into it. First off, what we want to do guys is choose the right size binding for your board. So hopefully you've got the right size width of the board for your boot, and then your boot's going to fit your binding. Now, if you're a size 10, for example, you can go on a medium or a large binding. I recommend always going the medium because it gives you less binding to deal with and it's just less weight and it works pretty well. The other thing too is if you have your binding too big for your board, you're going to end up with the binding hanging over the edges of your board, and that's not really what you want. You want the binding to sit nicely on the board. Next, what we want to do is we want to figure out the width of what we're going to stand. Now, this can vary depending on the conditions that you're going to ride. So personally, I will like to stand a little bit narrower with some different angles for powder riding. And then if it's like just general freestyle riding, I'll be a little bit wide. But a good rule of preference that we use here in the shop is measuring the width of your shoulders. And then once you get that measurement of the width, you can go a slight wider or that exact, depends on what's comfortable for your body type. Everyone's slightly different, so there's no right and wrong answers when you're setting this board up. It's just you want to make sure that you're confident to actually do it. There's so many people that come into the store and they get us to set it up for them and then they just leave it and they're never taking the time to learn it. But it really is important that you take the time to play around with your stance because it can potentially add years to your longevity in snowboarding. If you're snowboarding with the wrong stance, it's wearing out your hips, it's doing damage. So just have a think about that, and that's kind of why we're making this video today, is just to, get people confident, hopefully after this video, to play around with their stance, move their stuff around. Then what we have is our discs. So in your union pack, you're going to have your discs, which will sit in the bindings as such. And then what's really cool with union, you got your bolts of course, is they will give you the tape measure. So once you sort of figure out what you are, so I'm 5'11" tall, I've just got sort of wide shoulders I guess, but about 53 centimeters for me personally is generally good for an everyday riding stance. You can also do it in inches. 21 inch is pretty sort of normal. And then what you want to do is look at your bindings here, and there'll be a screw and you can slide that off, and then you put your disc in there. Now the way that most bindings are going to work is 3-degree increments. So you'll see a 0, and then you'll see a 15, and then you'll see a 30. So each line where you can line up is a 3-degree increment. So you can go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Now if you have no idea where to start and you're just doing like an everyday ride at Hotham, Australia conditions, it's not powder riding or anything like that, we generally recommend maybe starting on like a 12 and 12 if you want to be quite freestyle orientated. Otherwise, something like maybe a 9 and a 15, so slightly squarer on the back and slightly more angle on the front, gives you a good sort of reference to start. And you just look at like, okay, I'm a surfer, I want to be more like surfing the mountain, or it's like, hey, I'm a skateboarder, I want to be jibbing around a bit more. Then you're going to be kind of even both ways because you're going to be riding switch a lot. Now what you want to think about is centering your boot. So you'll have your boot, your snowboard boot, you have your binding. Now what happens is you can put the disc in horizontal or vertical, and this will give you different options. The horizontal option is nice because it will just center the binding directly center on the board. But what may happen is when you put the boot in, if you're looking at your boot and there's more toe hanging over than your heel, that's not what we want. The idea is what we want is the same amount of toe as the heel hanging off the board. So what you do is you set it up like this, and then you can move back here and you can have a look and you go like, yep, that looks, you can just visually eyeball it up. And if the toes hanging way out here and your heel's like on the edge on the other side, then that's when we need to look at making some adjustments, which to adjust, if it's too much toe hanging out, we can turn it vertical like that and move it back that way. Or what we also can do is most bindings will have a heel cup adjustment. So you can see on the unions here, they've got 1, 2, and then 3. So what we can do is we can undo these bolts, which I recommend don't undo them all the way till it pops out. You just have to loosen them up just to where they're not gonna, and then you can tap the heel back in, tap that heel in, make it smaller, and then that can line it up that way, or you can pull it out to line it up. And the goal is just to get that boot on your board so you don't have too much heel or toe hang. Next thing we want to consider is getting the straps centered on the boot. So what we don't want is we don't want the straps to be sitting off to the side or not fitting your binding properly. You also, you know, like this, you don't have enough length right now to crank it down. So what you can do, the quick adjustment on the unions, is you can literally just move that forward, and now we've got enough strap to get it started. And then for me, that's, you know, going to be a bit annoying when I'm on the heel. Let's go the heel. The upper strap looks quite centered. The bottom, what I want to do is maybe I can change that one out to there as well. Gives me that little bit more length. And the toes centered and the upper strap centered. And I've also got room here, it's not cranked all the way down. So that looks pretty good to me. The other thing we can do is adjust it on this part of the binding as well. So undo that, unclip it. So you got adjustments in the toe that will just be super quick and easy that way. Or we can also, on the upper strap, we can move this part here and adjust this part here. And we just want to get it nice and centered so it gives you the most comfortable ride that you can have. Next thing we want to look at is angles. So highbacks, if you like to ride with a fair bit of angle on the front to the back, or you just running lots of angle, what you'll see is the highbacks will be on an angle compared to the rail. So what you can do is you can rotate this highback around, and what you want to do, which will make it just more comfortable in general, is get it so the highback is in line with the rail of your board. So you can see on most bindings, on the inside here, there's a couple of little holes here. So you can move that to one hole out. So you can just tweak that little adjustment, and that'll depend on the boot a little bit as well. So you just kind of want to make sure that it's sort of lining up really nice. Like you can see naturally with this ride boot and this binding, the way it sits, see how it's kind of like slightly off kilter right there. So what we can do to make that fit better is rotate this highback just across that way, one, and then it'll be in line nicely. So that's a good little trick as well to really dial your setup in. So lots of little tweaks that we can do to get our setup right. Now let's just talk about just how we want to look at angles and different conditions. So if you're going to go ride deep days in power, what I like to do is I like to set the binding right back on the board, and then have my stance from far back, the stance width that I'm happy with, which powder I'll go almost 0 or 3 degrees on the back, like super square. And then in the front, I want to go, you know, super tweaked out on the front, like maybe 18 or even 20, like a lot of angle on the front. And what that does is it just changes your body mechanics to just be way more comfortable. You're not going to ride switching powder, and you can kind of bring that stance width in a little bit. I find it's a little bit more comfortable, and you kind of end up riding like this. And it makes power riding really effortless. It's better on the body, opposed to when I'm on hard pack, for example, everyday riding. I'm gonna go more centered in the board, and I'm probably just gonna run something like 12 and 12, or maybe like 9 and 15 feels pretty good to me as well these days. And that just gives me the ability to like ride switch easily, land switch easily, take off switch, and have that more freestyle feel. So lots of things to consider, obviously. Hopefully this video is helping you make the decisions you need to make, and is really just opening you up to play around with your stance, because yeah, it'll add years to your riding. Lastly, we just want to get the binding to the board set up right. So bindings have stiffnesses and grades, so generally the higher end bindings, the more stiff and responsive they are. And one thing you don't want to do is buy like a really stiff board and then have a really soft binding. So, and same with your boots, because you want to try and balance your setup. So like say your board's like a 5 out of 10, and then your binding, you know, if that's a 5 or 6 out of 10, that makes sense. And what you don't want is to have a binding that is a 3 on the flex scale out of 10, and then your board's like a 7 or 8, so a stiff board with a non-responsive binding. That's not going to be a very good setup, because you're not going to get the most out of the board, because you're not going to be able to manipulate it, because the balance is all wrong. So just thinking about, while you're purchasing your bindings, what sort of style rider you are. Do you like stiff setups and you're going to get a stiff board, then you need responsive bindings? Or are you more of a loose, flexible style, you just want a buttery, noodly board? Then you can go a softer, cheaper binding. And that's it. Hopefully this video has helped you guys with a bit of confidence to set up your snowboard and get the most out of your riding. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you on the hill soon. Alrighty guys, if you have any questions that you want to send our way, just head over to our website, welcomeboardstore.com.au, hit us up on the live chat, and we'll hit you back and get you riding. So thanks for watching.